The old tablet became the key that unlocked hope for Evie and Sarah. They spent hours huddled over the glowing screen, studying the cyborg factory map meticulously. Evie, with her military experience, quickly grasped the overall layout of the complex, identifying critical areas, security systems, and secret passages. Sarah, though still weak, possessed an excellent memory, helping Evie remember every minute detail on the map. Central processing area is here. Evie pointed to a red blinking point on the screen. This is probably where the Zargonians carry out the assimilation process. If we can destroy this area, we can disrupt the factory's entire operation. But this area is heavily guarded. Sarah worriedly looked at the map. There are so many guards, cameras, and even these things too. She pointed to red skull icons scattered around the central area. What are those? Traps, Evie frowned. Definitely traps. The Zargonians aren't stupid enough to leave their most critical area unguarded. She pondered for a moment, then pointed to another area on the map, located at the factory's edge. But look at this. This area seems to be the power hub, the place supplying energy for the entire factory. Power hub? Sarah doubted. You're planning to attack the power hub? But how would that help? It would help, Evie scoffed. If we destroy the power hub, we can cripple the entire factory, shut down the lights, disable the machinery, and most importantly, disable the energy fence. Evie's eyes lit up with determination. If we can do that, we'll have a chance to escape and maybe liberate the other prisoners too. Liberate other prisoners? Sarah was surprised. You're planning to start a rebellion? Why not? Evie shrugged. We can't escape alone. The Zargonians will hunt us down to the ends of the galaxy. But if we have an army of rebelling slaves, things will be different. She looked at Sarah, her eyes burning. You see, Sarah, humanity isn't slave material. We're warriors. We can fight. We can be free. Sarah looked at Evie, a new hope flickering in her gray-blue eyes. I believe you, Evie. I'll help you. Good, Evie smiled. Then, let's start planning. She pointed at the map, outlining the first steps of their plan. First, we need to get to the power hub. It's located at the factory's edge, seems less guarded than the central area. We can use these old, abandoned corridors to approach it secretly. But how can we recruit your army? Sarah asked, still slightly doubtful of this audacious plan. Most prisoners have lost all will to fight. I know, Evie sighed. But not all of them. I saw in the processing area, there are still some with a spark in their eyes. We need to find them, ignite hope in them, and show them that we can win. She thought for a moment, then pointed at the map. Look here. The prisoner holding area is located near the power hub. Maybe we can find allies there. And then, Evie and Sarah began to implement the first phase of their rebellion plan. They left the abandoned room, followed the old corridors, heading towards the prisoner holding area. Evie led the way, energy rifle ready, Sarah closely behind, tablet map in hand. They moved cautiously and stealthily, avoiding all Zargonian guards. As they approached the holding area, they heard different sounds compared to the terrifying silence of the factory. Faint murmuring, shuffling footsteps, and even hushed whispers. Someone was here. There was life here. Evie and Sarah's hope surged higher. Evie signaled Sarah to stop, taking cover behind a corner. She peeked out into the corridor, observing the situation. The holding area was a vast corridor, lined with prison bars on both sides, packed with prisoners of all races. They were gaunt, emaciated, clothes tattered, but their eyes still held a spark of hope, a flicker of resentment, and a hint of yearning for freedom. Here it is, Evie whispered to Sarah. This is our army. She took a deep breath, regaining her composure, and stepped out of hiding, heading towards the prison bars. She knew this was a big gamble. She didn't know if these prisoners would trust her, would be willing to stand up and fight. But she had to try. She had to awaken the flame of resistance within them. For freedom. For humanity. and for a brighter future. Hello, Evie called out, her voice echoing in the silent corridor. Is there anyone here who wants to be free? Evie's call echoed in the corridor of the prisoner holding area, shattering the heavy silence that enveloped the place. Prisoners slumped behind bars, startled, looked up, vacant eyes turning towards her. A flicker of surprise crossed their gaunt faces, then quickly shifted to suspicion, even indifference. Among the hundreds of prisoners, only a few reacted to Evie's call. A handful curiously approached the bars, listening to her words. Others remained seated, heads bowed, seemingly too accustomed to despair to believe in anything anymore. And a few scoffed, mocking Evie's plea. Freedom, you say? A hoarse voice croaked from a dark cell. An elderly prisoner, with a wrinkled face and grizzled beard, stepped into the light. His eyes were cloudy, reflecting skepticism and bitterness. Kid, what nonsense are you spouting? There's no freedom here, only slavery and death. That's not true, Evie retorted, her voice strong and impassioned. There is freedom. We can take back our freedom. We don't have to be slaves to the Zargonians. We can fight. We can rebel. Rebel. The old prisoner scoffed, shaking his head wearily. You're crazy, kid. You don't know how powerful the Zargonians are. We have no chance. Resistance is futile, only brings more suffering. Nothing is futile, Evie insisted. What's futile is surrendering, is accepting slavery. If we unite, fight together, we can defeat them. We are human. We are not cowardly insects. Evie's words resonated in the corridor, touching the hearts of a few prisoners listening. A few eyes began to gleam with a spark of hope. A few hands gripped the bars tighter. But there was still doubt, fear, and resignation deeply ingrained in their minds. You talk a good game, another young prisoner spoke up, his voice trembling. But what can we do? We have no weapons, no plan, nothing. We're just weak, naked prisoners. We have each other. Evie retorted, raising the energy rifle in her hand. I have a weapon. I have a map of the factory. And I have a plan. We can take weapons from them. We can destroy the factory. We can escape. But we need to do it together. We need to trust each other. Who will follow me? Who wants freedom? Evie looked directly into everyone's eyes, her words carrying a strange power, an unwavering resolve. Her enthusiasm and faith began to spread, breaking through the shell of indifference and despair of the prisoners. A silence hung heavy, tense. Then, the young prisoner, the one who had voiced doubts, slowly stepped forward, approaching the bars. His eyes sparked with determination, his voice less shaky. I'll follow you, he said, looking directly at Evie. I'm too tired of this slave life. I want freedom. I want to fight. Me too. Another prisoner spoke up, a woman with a resolute face and bright eyes. I've lost everything to the Zargonians. I have nothing left to lose. I'll fight. And me. Me too. I'm in. Voices of agreement grew louder, stronger. From just a few initially, the number of prisoners agreeing to join the rebellion quickly grew, spreading throughout the corridor. Doubt and fear gradually dissipated, replaced by excitement, determination, and burning desire for freedom. The old prisoner from before still stood in his dark cell, observing the unfolding scene with a complex look. Finally, he sighed, stepped into the light, approaching the bars. His cloudy eyes still held some skepticism, but now with a faint glimmer of hope. Kid, he said, looking at Evie with a changed gaze. I still think you're crazy. But maybe you're right. We have nothing left to lose. If you have a plan, I'll follow you. I'll fight. Great. Evie smiled brightly, looking at her new comrades with eyes full of trust. Welcome to the revolution. My name is Evie, and we will liberate this place. Cheers erupted throughout the corridor, shuffling footsteps, rattling bars. The atmosphere in the prisoner holding area had completely changed. The deathly silence was gone, replaced by excitement, enthusiasm, and fighting spirit. The flame of resistance had truly ignited in the hearts of the slave prisoners. And Evie Reed, the ranger from faraway Earth, was the one who sparked that flame. "All right," Evie shouted, drawing everyone's attention. "We don't have much time. The Zargonians will soon find out about this. We need to act immediately. Listen to me, and together we will reclaim our freedom." And then, under Evie's leadership, the slave prisoner rebellion began. The next chapter would witness bold actions, fierce battles, and sacrifices in the fight to reclaim freedom and dignity for the oppressed. The revolution had begun, and the fate of the Zargonian cyborg factory, as well as the fate of the entire galaxy, would be decided from here. "Listen up," Evie roared, her voice echoing through the prisoner holding area, drowning out the excited cheers of the prisoner crowd. "We don't have time to celebrate. The Zargonians will be here any minute. We have to act now. Here's the plan." Evie quickly laid out the battle plan she had devised based on the factory map. The first and most crucial objective was the power hub. Destroying it would cripple the factory's defense system, disable machinery, and create an escape opportunity for everyone. To reach the power hub, they needed to traverse a series of corridors, machinery areas, and security checkpoints. Evie divided the prisoner force into several small groups, each with a specific task. One group would lead the way, destroying surveillance cameras and disabling the alarm system. Another group would directly attack the checkpoints, diverting guards. And the main group, led by Evie herself, would secretly approach the power hub, plant explosives, and detonate. "What are our weapons?" a prisoner asked, his voice worried. "We only have a few energy rifles we snatched. Our best weapon is our numbers," Evie replied, her voice full of confidence. "We outnumber them. We're more determined than them. We'll use anything we can as a weapon. Bricks, iron pipes, even teeth and fingernails. We'll fight like free humans, not like caged animals." Evie's words fueled the crowd of prisoners with strength and excitement. They roared in agreement, hands clenching the makeshift weapons they had scavenged. Rusty iron bars, broken pieces of metal, even pebbles, all became weapons in the hands of slave prisoners yearning for freedom. "All right," Evie yelled. "Let's move out. Sabotage team, advance. Assault team, follow behind. Main force, bring up the rear. Remember, our target is the power hub. Fight with everything you've got. For freedom. For humanity." The war cry reverberated throughout the prisoner holding area. Hundreds of slave prisoners, under Evie Reed's leadership, surged out of the prison bars, beginning their earth-shattering rebellion. They charged like a raging flood, swarming through corridors, attacking checkpoints, and clashing with Zargonian guards who were frantically fighting back. The battle was fierce and chaotic. Slave prisoners, despite lacking weapons and training, fought with unprecedented courage and determination. They were no longer creatures resigned to their fate. They were free humans, fighting to reclaim their right to live, their right to be human. Evie led the main force, secretly weaving through corridors, avoiding direct clashes with guards, and heading straight for the power hub. She moved like a whirlwind, taking down any Zargonian guard who dared to block her path. The energy rifle in her hand fired nonstop, each shot taking down a guard. Sarah followed closely behind, supporting Evie and guiding the way using the tablet map. Throughout the cyborg factory, the sounds of gunfire, shouts, and explosions echoed incessantly. The slave prisoner rebellion had caused unprecedented chaos, shaking the seemingly solid Zargonian control system. Zargonian guards frantically fought back, but they were completely surprised and reactive to the scale and ferocity of the uprising. The sabotage team had completed their mission brilliantly. Surveillance cameras were destroyed, the alarm system was disabled, Zargonian communication lines were disrupted. The assault team had also achieved initial victories. Checkpoints were overrun, guards were killed or fled. Slave prisoners had seized some weapons and equipment from the enemy, strengthening the rebellion. But Evie knew these were only temporary victories. The Zargonians would certainly not allow the rebellion to continue. They would mobilize stronger forces, more advanced weapons, and more brutal tactics to quell the uprising. Their time was running out, and they needed to quickly complete their main objective, the power hub. "We're almost at the power hub," Sarah said, panting, pointing at the tablet map. "Just one more checkpoint." "But this checkpoint is heavily guarded." Evie looked at the map, frowning. The final checkpoint, located right before the power hub, was surrounded by a dense layer of defense, with numerous guards and heavy energy cannons. A direct assault on this checkpoint would be an extremely difficult task, potentially causing heavy losses to the rebel forces. "We need another plan," Evie said, thinking fast. "We can't attack head-on. We need to find a way to bypass this checkpoint secretly or disable it remotely." A bold idea suddenly flashed in Evie's mind. She looked at the map, then at Sarah, her eyes full of determination. "Sarah, do you remember the ventilation area we passed through earlier?" "Ventilation area?" Sarah was surprised. "You mean that narrow, dark tunnel?" "That's right," Evie nodded. "The map shows this ventilation area leads straight to the power hub. Maybe we can use this tunnel to secretly infiltrate the power hub and plant explosives without being detected by the guards." Sarah's eyes widened in astonishment. You're planning to crawl through the ventilation tunnel? But it's very narrow and dark and filthy." "I know," Evie scoffed. "But we have no other choice. Either we risk it or we die. Which do you choose?" Sarah looked at Evie, her eyes resolute. "I choose freedom." "Then let's go." Evie smiled, patting Sarah's shoulder. "Looks like we're about to do some dirty work." And then, Evie and Sarah, along with a small group of volunteer prisoners, began their dangerous and stealthy journey, crawling into the narrow and dark ventilation tunnel, heading towards the power hub, carrying hope and determination to liberate themselves and all the oppressed. The rebellion had entered its decisive phase, and the fate of the Zargonian cyborg factory, as well as the fate of the entire revolution, would be decided in the coming hours. The ventilation tunnel was darker and narrower than Evie imagined. Dusty, damp, and suffocating. The air was thick, heavy, reeking of machine oil and rust. Evie, Sarah, and the volunteer prisoners had to crawl, squeeze through narrow pipes, venturing deep into the cyborg factory. Everything was pitch black, only the faint light from Evie's flashlight illuminating the way. Soft footsteps, ragged breaths, and the rustle of clothes brushing against the pipe walls were the only sounds breaking the eerie silence. The suffocating, confined feeling in the tunnel weakened Sarah further, but she still struggled to keep up with Evie without a single complaint. "Are we far from the power hub?" Sarah whispered, her voice hoarse. "Not far now," Evie replied, glancing at the tablet map. "According to the map, we're almost there. Just need to get through this pipe section." But the pipe section Evie had just mentioned turned out to be even narrower and more winding than any before. They had to crawl on their bellies, squeeze through sharp turns, and climb over rough obstacles. The space was getting tighter, the air thinner, making them feel breathless and dizzy. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed from ahead, reverberating from deep within the tunnel. Clacking footsteps, clanking armor, and Zargonian voices. Guards. They had found them. "Hurry," Evie urged, increasing crawling speed. "They're coming after us." But it was too late. Zargonian guards had blocked the tunnel ahead, sealing off the only passage leading to the power hub. They were trapped in the narrow tunnel, no escape, no cover. "We're surrounded," a prisoner cried out in panic. "It's over. We're doomed." "No," Evie roared, her voice full of determination. "We're not doomed. We will fight. We will find a way." She stopped, surveyed the situation, thinking fast. Tunnel ahead blocked, tunnel behind filled with guards. No way forward, no way back. But there was still one way out. Evie looked up at the tunnel ceiling, where a small, circular vent was located, covered with a metal grate. "Look," she pointed to the vent. "Escape route. We can climb up there." The vent was small and located quite high, but it was their only hope. Evie didn't hesitate, starting to climb the pipe wall, trying to reach the vent. Sarah and the other prisoners followed suit, climbing awkwardly in the narrow tunnel. When Evie reached the vent, she used all her strength to yank the metal grate. The grate popped open, revealing a vast space above. The power hub. They had finally reached their target. Evie climbed out of the tunnel, pulling Sarah and the other prisoners up after her. They stepped onto an elevated walkway, looking down at the vast power hub below. A colossal space, filled with complex machinery, tangled cables, and brilliant energy light. Huge reactors emitted a deep hum. Searing blue energy pillars flashed between the machines. This was the heart of the Zargonian cyborg factory. But the power hub was also more heavily guarded than any other area. Hundreds of Zargonian guards patrolled everywhere. Heavy energy cannons were densely positioned, and an energy barrier surrounded the central area. To destroy the power hub, they needed to overcome this defense perimeter and confront the Zargonians' most elite guard force. "See," the old prisoner said, his voice pessimistic. "I told you, we have no chance. This area is impenetrable." "Nothing is impenetrable," Evie retorted, her voice full of defiance. "Everything has a weakness. We just need to find theirs and strike at it." She looked at the tablet map, thinking fast. The energy barrier seems to be controlled from the central control station. If we can disable that control station, we can drop the energy barrier. "Central control station?" Sarah asked. "Where is it?" Evie pointed to a spot on the map, located in the center of the power hub, marked with a special icon. "There. But to get to the control station, we have to cross this." She pointed to a large, empty area located between the elevated walkway and the central control station. An open field, completely exposed, and full of guards and energy cannons. "So, is this the end?" the young prisoner asked, his voice despondent. "There's no way we can cross that open field." "No." Evie shook her head, smiling confidently. "We can. We just need a little diversion." She looked around, searching for something that could help her execute her plan. And then, her gaze fell upon large crates, filled with energy cable coils, lined up along the elevated walkway. A bold idea flashed in Evie's mind. "Listen," Evie said, her voice full of cunning. "I have a plan. It's a bit crazy, but maybe it'll work." She quickly explained her plan to Sarah and the other prisoners. Initially, they seemed hesitant, but faced with Evie's determination and confidence, they finally agreed. And then, under Evie's command, the rebel group began implementing their audacious plan. They pushed the crates containing energy cables down into the open field, creating a thick smoke screen, obscuring the vision of guards and energy cannons. While the Zargonians were still confused and disoriented, Evie led the main force, rushed out of the elevated walkway, dashed across the open field with terrifying speed, heading straight for the central control station. Rain of energy bullets from cannons and Zargonian guard rifles poured down like a torrential downpour, tearing through the air, leaving streaks of deadly light. But Evie and her comrades still charged forward, undeterred, unafraid. They dodged cannon fire, weaved through bullet storms, and fired back fiercely. Many fell, wounded, even perished. But those remaining continued to advance. No one gave up. No one retreated. They knew this was the final battle, their last chance to win freedom. They would fight to their last breath, for themselves, for their comrades, and for the future of humanity. Finally, after a breathless, life-or-death dash, Evie and the main force reached the central control station. The control station door was locked shut, guarded by a thick layer of armor and 2 elite Zargonian guards. No time to think. Evie signaled her comrades to attack. The final battle, deciding the fate of the rebellion, began. Evie and her comrades charged to attack the control station, facing the elite guard force of the Zargonians head-on. Gunfire, metal clashes, shouts, and roars echoed throughout the power hub area. Evie fought like a beast, the energy rifle in her hand becoming a scythe of death, reaping lives among the enemy. She moved swiftly, agilely, and brutally, taking down every Zargonian guard who dared to block her path. Sarah and the other prisoners also fought with all their might, supporting Evie and holding off the control station's defenders. The battle was incredibly balanced and fierce. Zargonian guards, with advanced weapons and superior combat skills, caused many difficulties for Evie and her comrades. But the slave prisoners, with their courageous fighting spirit and unity, fought back resiliently and unwaveringly. Time passed like an eternity. Both sides suffered heavy losses, blood spilled, corpses littered the ground. But Evie and her comrades still didn't back down. They knew they had to win. There was no turning back. And then, after a superhuman effort, Evie finally defeated the two Zargonian guards protecting the control station door. "Sarah, let's go," Evie yelled, rushing into the central control station. Sarah and a few other prisoners followed closely behind. The control station was a vast room, filled with computer screens and complex control panels. In the center of the room, a colossal energy pillar emitted a brilliant blue light, vibrating intensely. This was the energy core of the entire Zargonian cyborg factory. "Destroy it," Evie yelled, pointing at the energy pillar. "Destroy that damn thing." Evie and her comrades simultaneously opened fire on the energy pillar. Searing blue energy beams, crude bullets, and scavenged weapons all relentlessly assaulted the target. The energy pillar vibrated violently, emitting terrifying cracking sounds. The blue light began to flicker, dimming. "Faster, faster," Evie urged, firing continuously at the energy pillar. "We're almost there." And then, a tremendous explosion erupted, tearing through space. The energy pillar exploded, unleashing a colossal energy surge, obliterating everything in the control station. Blinding white light engulfed all, then collapsed into darkness. The Zargonian cyborg factory shook violently, mechanical groans echoing everywhere. The power system was destroyed. The factory was crippled. The rebellion was successful. When the light subsided, Evie stood upright amidst the ruins of the central control station, panting, drenched in sweat, but a victorious smile spread across her lips. Sarah and the other prisoners stood beside her, also exhausted, battered, but their eyes shining with joy and pride. From outside the factory, cheers echoed back, growing louder, clearer. The rebellion had spread everywhere, liberating thousands of slave prisoners. The Zargonians completely collapsed, the control system disintegrated, and the colossal cyborg factory fell into the hands of the slaves who had just won back their freedom. We did it," Sarah whispered, her voice choked with emotion, tears streaming down her dust-streaked face. "Yes," Evie replied, embracing Sarah, her voice moved. "We did it. We won." She looked out the control station door, at the chaotic but jubilant scene of the rebellion unfolding. Thousands of slave prisoners poured out of the factory, cheering, dancing, and celebrating their newfound freedom. The Zargonian Alliance slave ships began to rebel, turning their weapons on their masters. A true revolution had begun. Evie smiled. She had done more than she had expected. She hadn't just escaped, hadn't just survived, but had ignited a large-scale rebellion, liberating thousands of lives, and delivering a fatal blow to the brutal Zargonian Alliance. She had proven to the entire galaxy the power of the human spirit, indomitable will, and burning desire for freedom. HFY. Humanity, fuck yeah. That motto, now, was not just a saying, but had become reality. In the distance, ships of the Earth Vanguard Defense Fleet appeared in the Pandora sky, heading towards the burning cyborg factory. Humanity had arrived to welcome Evie and the heroes home and to continue the fight against the Zargonian Alliance, liberating the entire galaxy from their brutal slavery. The war was not over yet, but Evie knew the future was brighter now. Freedom had come, and humanity would prevail.